Social Studies 30-1 here, looking at source number 2 on our topic of repression. Give you a second or two to look over it, and then we'll dissect it. All right. Things I'd be looking for: silencing the opposition, increasingly repressive measures, maybe source of terror, and then just maybe lives in fear. So those are the things I'd be looking for you to quote and specifically dissect. So silencing the voice of opposition. I mean, first of all, this quote is commenting on an authoritarian dictatorship, clearly. Silencing the voice of opposition. I would talk about why and how that would happen. Governments would do this because they're trying to eliminate the opposition. With no opposition, there's no political accountability, or at least less political accountability, and then you can pass your measures, at your will without political opposition. I'd also talk a bit about how you might do this. I'm thinking back to the notes from yesterday. You might suppress rights and freedoms. You take away free speech, freedom of expression. For sure, you're going to be controlling the media. You're going to be disseminating propaganda. When you eliminate the voice of opposition, there's no free speech. You're going to censorship the media and control it. And then, again, it makes it more possible for you to advance your government's agenda, pass laws that you want to pass without interference. You might talk about the use of a secret police, so maybe the Gestapo in Nazi Germany in the 1930s, maybe the Cheka or the KGB in the former Soviet Union, and how those secret police agencies spied on people and listened for the voice of opposition, then turned them in, imprisoned them in work camps, gulags, and maybe even executed them too. You might talk a bit about how the Nazis went so far as to pass an actual law, the law safeguarding the unity of party and state, to prevent illegal political opposition. So for sure you're expanding on that part. In terms of the green, increasingly repressive measures, well, once you take away free speech, once you take away, the media, the political opposition, then you can pass pretty much whatever laws you want to pass, increasingly repressive measures. So you might talk about mass imprisonments and arrests. You might talk about maybe mass executions and mass murder. I would speculate a bit at this point, talk a bit about examples from history. Once the Nazis removed the opposition, then they passed the infamous Nuremberg laws. Jews are stripped of their rights and freedoms and are no longer legal citizens. And that would eventually culminate with the Holocaust. Talk about the Holodomor in the former Soviet Union. Give some specific, increasingly repressive measures and point them out. And then maybe finally a source of terror, and that just means that people are scared to question their government. They are scared to hold their government accountable, but they should be holding their government accountable. They live in fear and they're too scared to do so. This clearly would be commenting on a dictatorship, um, but also maybe even on a democracy too, and that the guy's saying, listen, once you allow the government to take away some of your free speech and some of your freedom of expression, pretty soon you're going to be going down the road of increasingly repressive measures, and maybe one day you won't be a democracy anymore. I mean, after all, Germany was a democracy before the Nazis took over. Don't forget, it was the Weimar Republic, a democratic government, and look what happened to it after they took away the voice of opposition. In terms of specifics, I'm pointing out clearly the rule of law. The guy's warning us against letting the government act above the rule of law. We can't let them do that, because when they do, we lose rights and freedoms. And then pretty soon they're going to act in their own self-interest and not ours. In terms of perspective, the guy clearly is embracing, advocating liberalism and democracy, but he's also challenging liberalism too. He's saying we need to be careful. We can't allow for any removal of free speech, because one will lead to the other, and pretty soon you lose all your rights and freedoms. So there you go. Very thoughtful source.